Don't mind me. I'm just like falling in my chair. I hope this is not an indication of things to come tonight. Okay, I'm here.
All right, cool. So we've got everyone in, Jonathan?
Yeah, everyone. Last person is just joining.
All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. This is a regular meeting of the Isla Vista Community Services District. This meeting is being recorded. And Jonathan, can you do a roll call?
Director Brett?
Here.
Director Flaherty?
Here.
Director Bertrand?
Here.
Director Aguilar?
Here.
Director Freeman?
Here.
Director Deschler?
Here.
Director to be Topliff?
Here.
All right. Before we begin, we would like to acknowledge the Chumash people, who are the traditional custodians of this land. We pay our respects to the Chumash elders, past, present, and future, who call this place Anascoyo, the land that Isla Vista sits upon, their home. We are proud to continue their tradition of coming together and growing as a community. We thank the Chumash community for their stewardship and support, and we look forward to strengthening our ties as we continue our relationship of mutual respect and understanding. With that, we will move to the consent agenda. Do I have any items that directors wish to pull? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move approval of the consent agenda. Or actually, I saw Catherine have her hand. Her motion.
All right, moved by Flaherty and seconded by Bertrand. Is there any public comment on the consent agenda? All right, seeing none, we'll go to a roll call vote.
Director Brett?
Yes.
Director Flaherty?
Yes.
Director Bertrand?
Yes.
Director Aguilar?
Yes.
Director Freeman?
Yes.
Director Deschler?
Yes.
All right, motion passes 6-0. Now we're going to move to the public comment period. This is the time when any member of the public may speak on any matter within the board's jurisdiction that is not on the agenda today. If you have something you'd like to speak about that is on our agenda, we will open public comment during those items. But this is general public comment. Please hit the raise hand button or put something in the chat to indicate that you'd like to speak. All right, I don't think I'm seeing anything. So with that, I'll close the general public comment period, and we'll move to our first action item, which is the swearing in of County Board of Supervisors appointed Director, Carrie Topliff.
Excellent. I have the oath here. I can share my screen if that's easier for you, Director Topliff, to read it, or I can read it and you can repeat after me.
Either one's fine.
Okay, I'll just read it just so we can have it on video. So it's I, your name, do solemnly swear
I, Carrie Topliff, do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California.
That I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or pride or purpose of evasion.
That I take this obligation freely without any purpose of evasion or
mental reservation. And that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I'm about to enter.
And that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I'm about to enter.
Okay. That's the oath. Thank you. We'll get a signed version at another time.
Excellent. Congratulations, Director Topliff. We are very excited to have you joining our board. thank you so much for being here. I know we're all looking forward to working together to improve Isla Vista together. I see a hand from Director Bertrand, but I'd like to just give you, Director Topliff, a chance to say hello and introduce yourself if you'd like.
Sure, I would love to. I am a very passionate enthusiast about Isla Vista. I think someone at the board yesterday said I had a soft spot, but that sounds a little bit too remote to me, like it's a nostalgia thing, and it really isn't. I feel like I had so much of the formation of my life happen in Isla Vista, because Isla Vista is such an exciting community with so much energy, so much passion, so much opportunity for creating a better world. And so from what I've watched of you after this very long attempt to get local control of governmental services in Isla Vista, I'm so impressed with all of you and just the heart and intelligence that you're bringing to the task. And so I'm thrilled that I can be part of it. I feel fortunate that I have had this wonderful career at Santa Barbara County. I was hired there by Bob Geis in 2000, and I had executive positions with child support, public health, auditor controller, human resources, behavioral wellness. So I feel like I've been fortunate to make a lot of friends at Santa Barbara County, and also to understand a lot about how Santa Barbara County works. And I know that from the outside, sometimes it can seem like an impenetrable bureaucracy. And so I hope that I can help be a bridge between all of the good ideas that I've always known to come out of Isla Vista and the future that we want to create, using county partnership to achieve those goals. So I'm very excited to be here, and I'm looking forward to what we do together.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Director Topliff. We are very excited to be working with you as well towards all of our shared goals. I'm going to go to Director Bertrand.
Yes, thank you. Well, Director Topliff, welcome to our board. We're so excited to have you. And on top of everything you just shared about your passion and your why for engaging in this, I just think it's so cool that you're someone who served in elected office here many years ago as a director of the Park District, and now you're back with our Community Services District. And I know we're going to have a lot of great work together. Thanks so much for stepping up, and welcome to the team.
Thank you.
Director Freeman.
First of all, can you hear me correctly? Okay. So I'm really glad that the county has managed to take the responsibility of appointing somebody to the Isla Vista Community Service District seriously, both with their appointment of the previous director Bob Geis, and now with Carrie Topliff. I continually have this fear that one day there will be a set of board of supervisors that will appoint somebody who is merely somebody who is a voice purely for the county, who understands only administration, does not have any background in Isla Vista. But I have been extremely happy seeing that they have chosen to select Carrie, who has all of this rich background in the area, and such an interest and excitement in our operation and the people here. And so I thank you so much for doing this, Carrie. I don't know what process internally might have led to anything, but I'm happy. So
Thank you.
Director Flaherty.
Hi, I just wanted to briefly say I'm so excited to have you on the board. I had the chance to meet with you this summer, and it was so clear the love and passion that you have for Isla Vista. And I'm so excited to learn from you and serve with you on this board, and welcome. And I can't wait. So thank you.
Thank you for that. Well, we are all very excited that you've joined us, Director Topliff. And I know Ethan mentioned some of your previous pursuits in Isla Vista with the Park District. I think you also have experience with the Water District in Goleta as well. And it's really special for us because for many of us, as we embarked upon creating this district, there's really only one source of history about Isla Vista, and it's the book A Citizen's History. And it's definitely very humbling to see your name. I think you have a whole chapter that you wrote in that book, now joining us as a part of the team of sort of the next generation, the next chapter of Isla Vista. So I too am very pleased with the county for their continued partnership and engagement with our district, and I know that will continue. Okay, we're going to close this item and move to the second item, which is the housing availability and vacancy discussion. So before I hand it over to Jonathan, I just want to briefly introduce this item. I think we are all aware that there's been a really important community conversation going on over the last number of weeks and for about 2 months about housing in Isla Vista. And this is a conversation that we've had at various times at this board, but we really wanted to put this item on the agenda for us to try and talk about it in a more holistic way and see if there are ways that the Community Services District can contribute towards improving the situation for all. I've been just so heartbroken to see the stories from residents of our community who are being made former residents of our community because they can't find a place to live. So I hope that we can have a good discussion about some of the factors that impact that, and also how we can sort of advance the discussion in a way that remedies the issue for future generations. So I'll hand it over to Jonathan if you want to introduce this.
Sorry, I don't have a lot more else to say. I think we have our planning discussion after, which can be tied to this. But I don't have anything else to say, but I can say that on a smaller scale level, not on a systems level, we've been ramping up the rental housing mediation promotion. And that's something that our interns in Sydney are working on for the next, this month. So it's that the conflicts that come with that, with people having new roommates, crowding, anything like that, we're doing that part on the operational side, but I don't have anything else to add. And I will come back, chime in once I hear board discussion.
Excellent. Well, one of the other reasons I think that we wanted to put the item on the agenda, and as members of the public and board members will notice, we don't have any attachment on this item. And one of the reasons why is we don't have a whole lot of data about housing in Isla Vista. And I know this is something that I've been thinking about a lot recently, in terms of if we're going to approach a problem like this, it would be really good to have some data to help not just us, but all agencies in the community, including the university and the county, make informed decisions about how to prioritize different aspects of this problem, because it is multifaceted. It's not just a vacancy and availability problem, although that is the most pressing problem right now. It's also a quality problem. And that's sort of the impetus for why the rental housing mediation program exists. So I'm hoping maybe we can talk about some of the factors that go into it. And what I'd like to see come out of this is for us to include a component of this in the planning RFP that we have for the second item on the agenda. Director Bertrand.
Thank you. So a few thoughts. First, just on the unprecedented nature of this issue and just how extreme it is. I know a lot of us are seeing it from different angles. We have friends who are still searching for housing. We have friends who have gone from having a 2-bedroom apartment with 2 people in each bedroom to making room for 2 more friends to live in the living room. That's a scenario I just heard. We have folks who are living in their cars, and all of this is super serious. And I've also seen discussions about people deferring their educational course load for this quarter until a time when they can come back and be housed. And a lot of this is happening last minute, and we're a week out from the start of classes. So it's super concerning. Just earlier this spring, I had someone move out of my apartment and a spot to fill. And in that time, in one day, I got 20 inquiries. That was in the spring. Just last week, I heard from one of my friends who has a home on the west side of Santa Barbara, and he let me know that in 2 hours, he received 40 inquiries from UCSB students who would otherwise be living in Isla Vista. And that really said something. So that's just some observations about the issue that we are seeing. But as far as what we can be doing as a district, I look at 2 of our services specifically. First being rental housing mediation, which Jonathan mentioned, but also I want to inquire about the status of our safe parking partnership with New Beginnings Counseling Center. And I'm curious about that just because we are hearing about a lot of folks who are thinking that they may be living in their car, at least on a temporary basis, which is really sobering that that is something that's turning into a solution for folks. But nonetheless, I think that we need to look at how we can help for people who do find themselves in that situation as a last resort.
Yeah, I can answer, just provide some information on the Safe Parking Program, which the information to sign up for, it's on our website and on the New Beginnings website, but it could be, we could make it more visible or more prominent sign up for safe parking. I think we're not supposed to say the location, even though we've passed something that says it, but they could hold maybe 3 or 4 people at the location, I think max, but it's never been more than 1 or 2. And no one is currently signed up, is what I can share, is that the last people who were signed up, I think stopped months ago. And so we don't have any current users, but New Beginnings is accepting the applications.
Good to know, thank you. And in addition to our smaller scale program, which I think traditionally perhaps serves a bit of a different clientele who are facing issues on top of just the immediate housing shortage from UCSB. But in addition to that, perhaps we can get in touch with the university to see if they are considering any sort of safe parking. Just because, especially in the news, we've seen a lot of coverage on this. There was a KCRW article out of LA a couple of days ago that spoke with students who are looking to move into their cars. And I think there are, unfortunately, a lot of folks finding themselves in that situation.
Thank you, Director Bertrand.
It would be great if we could expand that program and especially work with UCSB with some of their property availability. I mean, I think that New Beginnings has a very good track record. They know how to run the program well. There's a lot of stigma associated with homelessness, but if you're a student who's just doing it temporarily while you're waiting for something, I think that there a lot of that stigma is removed, which I think is very helpful for people. And then when you think about all the resources in Isla Vista and then the university community for like showers and meals and everything else, I mean, it does seem like it could really be helpful. And living in your car when you're a student, I mean, that can be a little bit of an adventure too.
Thank you for that, Director Topliff. Director Freeman.
Yeah, so first of all, I will take at least a little bit of issue with the praise in some sense of New Beginnings. This is something I brought up before during some of our interactions with them, and particularly though during some of the IVCN meetings. They have a number of restrictions related to their program, and they have a feature such as like a curfew, which can be very awkward for people in different situations. As far as I can tell, they were very much optimized towards a caseworker mentality of this person maybe also has a mental health problem, and we need to very much limit we need to limit their life in some particular way. I remember there was a defense at one point of this defense is from a different group, so actually I'll ignore that. But there's very much this caseworker mentality. And I was just speaking a few days ago with some people who actually live in their cars. One person who has been doing what's known as van boarding at the Isla Vista student housing co-ops, where you pay a reduced rent to live in your van in a driveway as opposed to living inside the house, as well as somebody else who has simply been living in their car around the Santa Barbara area. And neither of them had any interest in, and we actually had a very negative opinion of the New Beginnings program. And so I've been kind of hoping that there will be some kind of, to the extent to which something needs to be expanded in order to work better with the potential influx of students who might be needing some kind of resources, to be something different from the New Beginnings program. That said, there's also been some discussion in recent meetings, and Philip Axelrod has been able to attend some of these meetings relating to trying to push the university in order to, as mentioned, provide part of their property, which I think, given that the university has essentially created the scenario, I see the thought process there, and I kind of think I agree with the thought of that the university should be trying to provide some of their property. At the same time, that we actually already know what some of the response from the university is, and I think that it's all kind of a reasonable thought, which is that if the university is already, and actually before I should say that, at the recent Vista Community Network meeting, it's also I thought it was very interesting that the county, specifically the Office of the Third District, Gina and Joan, and particularly Gina being very strong on this idea that if the university has created this problem, the university should be attempting to try to solve it, and potentially be providing safe parking themselves. But to get back then to the reasonable thought that I hear from the university, is that if the university is at this point of housing where they're asking people to show up to the university to live in their car, something has already very much fundamentally failed, and they've kind of taken it on this thought process that they don't feel like they're. This is my understanding. This sounds like I'm speaking for the university. I'm just like, this is what I kind of heard, and maybe we'll hear some from the university in a second. But is that it's. They haven't gone to the point where that's quite necessary yet. They've been working on, for example, purchasing large blocks of hotel rooms and coordinating with local landlords, and essentially pulling out all the stops in order to prevent people from staying in their cars, and trying to provide resources towards students. And there's been a lot of, I think, good outreach from various programs on campus with respect to what to do if you are in a position where you are coming to university not having housing. And I do sometimes fear that there are people who the university might not realize doesn't have housing at this time because they are simply in the community struggling, and hadn't realized that they should really contact some particular office on campus in order to try to have people on campus mitigate it. But I have gotten the impression that the university is trying to do what they can to solve the problem before essentially giving into the problem and doing, well, let's just allocate a large parking lot for people to park in, I guess, and sleep. So I'm not certain where I am then on that, because I have been kind of following what the university's been doing. I guess the biggest thing from my perspective is I just wish that the university was in a better position to offer more quickly, more remote learning. But yeah.
Thank you for that, Director Friedman. I know we have a number of folks on the call. I think now is a decent time to open up the public comment period. If you would like to comment on this item, please hit the raise hand button or put something in the chat indicating that you'd like to comment. All right, not seeing any requests to speak on this item. Oh, no, I do see one. This is the phone number is 760. Please unmute yourself and go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
It's Ash.
Hi, Ash, go ahead.
I wanted to say thank you for having this item for discussion. And I think one thing to be aware of at this point is a lot of people may have made up their minds that they're going to live in their cars in Isla Vista. And I think, personally, I'm going to be, on the lookout for, what resources can be provided because of that. And I think, things like bathrooms and showers and meals are definitely top of mind. So something to think about. Maybe UCSD should help us with that. And I'm also worried about people who maybe are not UCSD students, but are maybe going to be pushed out because of this, called gentrification. That's another thing to be aware of. Thanks, check.
Thank you for your comments, Ash. Are there any other members of the public that'd like to speak? I'm not seeing anyone else, so I'll close the public comment period and I'll bring it back to the board. And I think the first person I saw who had a hand up was Director Deschler. Go ahead.
Yeah, first of all, I really appreciate that that you all have brought up this issue. I think it's an important issue. And I think, Spencer, how you opened this issue and talking about data is really significant. For many years, I think it has been a real lack of data on how many people live in Isla Vista, how many units are in Isla Vista, what students live in Isla Vista, what other populations live in Isla Vista. We all kind of query different databases and different reports, and we're all kind of left lacking with really good data. And there was several years ago, there was kind of an effort on behalf of UCSB and others in the community. I believe there was a foundation involved, might have been the Santa Barbara Foundation, but I can't remember, trying to get good data. So I think it's an important issue. I think it's one that is really central to making good policy, is really understanding some of these questions about who lives in Isla Vista, what are the living situations, where are students coming from, and I think Santa Barbara City College should be involved in that conversation as well. So I'll just make that point. And then second of all, I want to talk a little bit about, we've all been hearing a lot about housing in the community and the issues that have arisen for students coming back to the university. It is something I can tell you that there are many, many, many people on campus spending a huge amount of time thinking about and coming up with solutions. No one wants to see any students live in their cars. That is just not an ideal environment for academic success. It's just not something that we want to have happen. And to that end, the university is now housing, this quarter will be housing more students on campus than ever before. Almost all rooms will be tripled. There will be some that'll be singles and doubles, but many, 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 many triples. Areas that were not for students have been converted to student housing. So huge amount of efforts on behalf of housing staff has gone into making sure that we can house as many students on campus. That is the goal. The deadline for campus housing was in June, and we kept open the housing list until September 7th. We queried all students, asking what their living arrangements were as of a week ago, last week, asking them, if you do not have housing, please contact us. Please put your name on the housing list. We have accommodated all the students that have put their names on the list as of September 7th. And we've done that through a combination of on-campus housing, as well as contracting with local hotels to provide housing for our students. So talking about housing, talking about people living in their cars, that's not what we're talking about. It's not a recipe for success. We don't want to see our students live in that kind of situation. And we're really committed to making sure that students have space either on campus or with contracts that we have with local hotels that are all in the Goleta and Santa Barbara County area. And we will work with our local partners to make sure that we're working closely with the students that are living in those areas. We don't know all the students that are living in the hotels yet because students haven't moved in yet, but we can tell you that all graduate students, all first year, all second year students have been offered on-campus housing, and everyone who has put their name on a housing list as of last week has been offered a spot in campus housing. Whether or not they've taken that spot, that's something I can't answer yet, but they have all been offered housing. So it's important to know that we take this very seriously. We do not want people living in their cars.
Thank you for that, Director Deschler. I see a hand up again from Director Freeman.
Thank you. So there are two questions that I've been seeing from among the groups that I've been talking to. One is, and it could be that there still aren't confirmed answers, but also it's coming up so quickly that I'm hoping that there's really get some clarity here with how the meals are going to be handled for the people living in the hotels. You know, that was something that when the emails had gone out to students, it was still it was actively being thought, but the university didn't just like forget about it. It was like saying we are working on figuring out how this will work. Given that there aren't kitchenettes often or any way of having your own food, and particularly with respect to the affordability, which leads directly into the second point that I'm able to bring up right now, which is that I've been hearing concerns that the on-campus fees are already quite high in comparison to what people oftentimes achieve off campus. And so there's been concern that the affordability of the pay the same amount as you would on campus for the housing in the hotel, particularly if you're not certain what's going to happen with meals, is going to be more expensive. And it could be that that's just a misunderstanding of what the actual pricing is. It could be that that's an exaggeration or something else. But those are the two concerns that I've been hearing that I think are related.
I don't know the answer, Jay. I can get the answer. I don't know the answer, and I don't want to speculate because I've heard different things about this. I can tell you that the campus is subsidizing the cost of the hotel rooms over and above what students would pay if they were on campus housing. So if it's $26 a day to live in campus housing, and the hotel room is $175, the campus is picking up the additional cost over the $26 a day. And we are doing that by raising private funds to pay for that. But I don't know the question of the meals. I don't even want to speculate because I know that bad information travels fast.
Thank you, Director Deschler. Director Flaherty.
I just have a few questions that would mainly be directed to Director Deschler, and it's totally okay if you don't have the answers as well. It's just because you're here and I'm curious. I was wondering if there were any plans for transportation, like to and from hotels for students to classes, and then if there are, I know that the housing contracts, and correct me if I'm wrong, but for the hotels, it's only for fall quarter right now. If there, I mean, I guess the situation can evolve as well, but if there would be plans to continue that throughout the year, I know that some students are graduating early, and that may open up some housing, but probably not all housing. So if there are plans starting to be talked about for that as well. And then, yeah, I also just wanted to voice my support on gathering data for housing as well, so that we have something concrete to reference when talking about this, because I know we would all love that data to reference.
So I can respond, and I can also get back to Jay's question. So students that are living in hotels, first of all the hotels are on the MTD bus line. That was done very purposely. Second of all students that are in hotel rooms will have the option to purchase dining on campus, dining options on campus. And let's see, you asked me something else. I think that was it. Was that it, Catherine?
If I know that it's just fall right now, but if
yes. Okay, so yes, the contracts with local hotels is through fall, and the reason for that, there's a couple of reasons. Normally, in a normal year, we will see what's called melt. So there'll be a number of students that come in the fall quarter, and that number declines by winter and spring quarters. And normally the difference between a fall quarter and a winter quarter can be between 500 and 1,100 people. And that's just normal. That's people graduating. That's people participating in education abroad programs. It's a number of different reasons why there's a melt. And so we anticipate that will happen between the fall and the winter quarter. And so the hotel rooms are, right now, the contracts are only up until the end of the first quarter. One of the things that is, there's many reasons, and we've talked about this before, why we think that the housing issues are so difficult and dramatic right now. And it's a number of issues. We know that people in Isla Vista are choosing to live in less dense living arrangements. We know that the Santa Barbara Goleta community, the vacancy rate is almost nothing, and prices are very high. And we know that a lot of students, some students started late searching for housing and found that housing was almost very, very difficult to find. So a myriad of reasons. I lost my train of thought, but there was a reason I was telling you that, but I don't know. Okay, sorry. So anyhow, all I can say is that we're very committed to making sure that our students have options for housing. And I should also say that we're really excited about our Munger Residence Hall project. We also have over 75 units that are being built in Ocean Road for faculty. And we also have the Ocean Road project for staff and faculty that's also in process. So some of this will alleviate some of the housing issues that we're seeing in our community. But yeah, I can just tell you that people are really working hard to make sure students have the support they need to be successful. And we hope that we anticipate that this is just a one quarter issue, and that it won't be the same issue in the winter. And what I was going to mention is we normally have a number of students that participate in education abroad. And right now with the COVID situation, many of our students cannot travel. So that's another exacerbating factor to why we have more students in the fall quarter. And then I just want to lastly say I keep hearing that people are saying that the university is exceeding enrollment and that our enrollment growth is the cause of this housing. The university has not exceeded our LRDP enrollment. That is, like I said, bad information travels fast. We've not exceeded our enrollment. Our enrollment comes from the legislature and the governor and through the office of the president. The number of students gets determined per campus. Santa Barbara and Santa Cruz, because of our LRDPs, get the fewest amount of students of all the UC campuses. So high enrollment is not the reason that we're having these housing issues. There are a number of reasons, but that's not one of them.
Thank you for that, Director Deschler. Director Aguilar, I see your hand.
Sorry, I'm still muted. My first question is, I'm very curious about where the data was collected about the decreasing density in Isla Vista per house. I keep hearing that, but I definitely don't see that as someone who bikes around, walks around every day. I see more people and more cars and kind of like the normal density of any of the Isla Vistas I've been fortunate enough to live in. So I'm wondering where that comes from.
So that is things that I've heard from the Student Legal Services Advocate, Robin Unander. I've also heard this from Jen Bertram, who is our Director of Community Housing, who works directly with landlords. And then people in student affairs have also gotten that information from students. That's where I've heard it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, I'm pretty distressed by this whole situation, not for myself, but for my neighbors. I feel really lucky that I found like a good landlord and good friends and a community to rely on. But when I look at Isla Vista, it's always been a densely populated area for decades and decades. And so this seems kind of like the slow incremental growth that we've just occurs with any popular beach town. And I am concerned about like this not being a 1-quarter problem. Just in my neighborhood of Isla Vista, there's constantly an increase of people living in their cars, an increase of like struggle for those persons. I don't think it's the healthiest way to live, but some of them, as Ash commented, do it for choice, do it no matter what. They've made their mind up to live in their cars, and they're not necessarily students at CC or at UC. I think this is a huge problem, and I am one of those people who wants to easily point fingers at the university, but also know that it's kind of like a big Santa Barbara issue. And so I want to like have the hard facts about this. I want in that data collection that we do there to be like a really firm answer on whether or not there is more density or less density in Isla Vista. And I think that also ties into the parking discussion that we talked about in our last meeting. I think this living in cars thing should be a very important question as far as parking. Yeah, I'm really concerned for our neighbors. And a student who's enrolled as a PhD at UCSB emailed me privately a couple weeks ago wanting to know what we were going to do and what power we had to address this issue. Let me go and try and find their question more specifically. The student wanted to know what level of government you, Goleta, or the county had control over Isla Vista zoning. And I was hoping to get involved so I could help make Ivy a more affordable place to live. I would love if your board did too. And I guess part of my concern, part of my worry is that when Director Bertram first opened up this discussion, we have a rental mediation program, and then we have a safe parking program. And a safe parking program has 4 spots at maximum and is also not being used at the moment. And part of me feels powerless as a director, but also knowing that this is our biggest wall, this is our biggest concern right now, because this goes directly in hand with the safety for our neighbors when it comes to COVID, when it comes to like anyone's personal health. So I just want to voice my concern and kind of lostness. And I hope that our board can come to a more creative solution.
Thank you for sharing that, Marcos. I think that's a really sort of poignant way to give a synopsis of this issue, because this is what I have been grappling with as well. How can our board help to advance the policy in a way that positively contributes to making our community more affordable when we have a very narrow set of powers as a community services district? And I think we can talk more about this in the next item. But I think as we embark upon figuring out what our role is in the planning process, it will be really important for us to have really good hard data to be able to make decisions with. I think Director Deschler mentioned this before, but it has been a constant frustration over the years for many of us that we don't even know how many students live in Isla Vista to begin with. And unfortunately, because of the failures of the census, even when we do get census data, I don't think any of us are going to feel very confident relying upon that. So I think that that is a really positive thing that we can do. And I want to add one other thing that we do have data on, and that's on not Isla Vista, but on the broader Santa Barbara community. We do have data that shows that this problem is not new, that low-income service workers in Santa Barbara County have been getting priced out of the community due to a lack of affordable housing for over a decade now. So while it is the responsibility of the university, as we've talked here today, to provide housing for those students that are without housing, it is also the responsibility of the broader community to be able to create a community that is affordable to live in. And I think in many ways, the entire South Santa Barbara community, we're dealing with the failure of that. And one good example is that our zoning in Isla Vista hasn't ever gone and undergone an update that's been adopted since the year 1970. So I think that while it may be very tempting because of the frustrations of the situation and the dire, pressing needs that students are facing right now, to point fingers at one another in different agencies and say who's responsible, who caused this, we really should try as a district to take a step back and advance the conversation in a way that doesn't do that. So those are kind of my closing thoughts, but I've got a couple of things that I just wrote down that would be good, I believe, for getting some empirical data on. And that is overcrowding. When we use the word density, I think what we actually mean is overcrowding, because density is a measure of how many housing units, how many bed spaces are in a certain building footprint. However, when we say density, what we're talking about is more and more students living in a given space. What I've talked about before here at the board, what I've talked about living in a room with 4 people total. Data on the demographics of our community, including racial, ethnic makeup, but also occupational data, including students and institutions that they're affiliated with, or other occupations that cause them to live in the Isla Vista community. So these are things that I think can really help inform the planning process moving forward. So with that, I don't know if there's any other discussion from the board before I think this is a good segue into our next item. But I do see, I see a hand from Director Bertrand.
Yeah, I just want to thank Director Deschler for providing a very comprehensive update and engaging with us on this. I know we'll be able to keep working together to make a difference. And the update that you have just about how much the university has done with the folks on the wait list, and I know about a month ago that was more than 700 people, that's remarkable. So thank you.
Thank you for that, Director Bertrand. So now we're going to move to item 4.3, which is the Isla Vista planning discussion, and I'll hand it over to Jonathan to introduce this item.
Great, thank you. I just dropped off and I'm back, so I think I missed the end of the last discussion, but I'll catch it on YouTube. Let me get my screen shared here. So hopefully this is going to provide a framework for how we can move forward as a district in this area, and it has been a pending item. So I am excited to share this, even just so that we can start having some more progress. Sorry, I'm on my phone's tethering, so my internet's extra slow now, unloading the different documents. So bear with me. My Cox internet is out. All right. So here's the agenda report. We've talked about the issue of planning for different reasons over the last year, and now it's obvious that it's very pertinent, especially as it relates to housing. We had discussed in the past the need to have a planner or a firm or an individual be brought on to start advising us and walking us through what can be done and working with us to produce different kinds of reports and information about planning, whether that is educational for us or whether that is informational or data that's collected. And it is one of our goals. It's one of our long-term goals that we've set. So I put this together based on all our past discussions. And these are just some ideas, and we definitely, based on our last discussion just now, we need to make one of these either explicitly about housing separately, or make all of them, make sure they all include housing issues, so, or both. But also want to hear from you all on other kinds of deliverables or information, or what you want out of this. What do we want to get out of the planning? Because we've talked about it so much, and I think I just kept thinking, we had made a list of different planning firms, found some different folks, but I think we really need to get clear, and it's good we're doing it now because it's now even more clear maybe what we want out of this process. And so that we can, and that your advisement on that will help me write a good scope of work that we can get out and have someone come on relatively soon, in the fall. And so that's pretty much it. That's the background all included here. And some of the ideas kind of based off the STEP grant. Again, great, we did that because it's given us more capacity to think about this. But existing conditions of our planning codes, land use, zoning, housing availability, and vacancy rates, we probably want to add that there. Needs assessment on the same, education on these issues to build our capacity to talk about them. And then also specifically what our goal is to have more information about the Area Planning Commission or alternatives, and then policy recommendations for how we can take action. And we can also do these. I think I want to highlight this because some of these might take longer than others, and there's urgency to the discussion that we can say, okay, we'd like this task completed first in this time span and move on to others. So we can set that kind of scheme up of what's important that we learn and do first. And yeah, we have 25,000 specifically budgeted for community planning issues. And again, I don't really know what the price range of what something like this might come in on. We will find out through the process, but that's what we have budgeted in our budget as available for this. So yeah, I would love to hear your feedback. And yeah, we've kind of got a lot of these kinds of RFPs and scopes of work in the air right now, and they're all related to planning and transportation. And so it's good that we're doing them all at the same time because it could bring some synergy.
Excellent. Thank you for that overview, Jonathan. Are there any comments from directors about things we'd like to see? I think that's a hand from Director Freeman.
Yeah, sorry, I'm cramped in my car here because this is the third Wednesday of the month, the one day of the month that I'm not at home, and we moved the meeting to it. So there are kind of two topics that we've been talking about in meetings that I think are kind of getting, rightfully so. I mean, that are kind of merging together at the point of this part of the conversation, because this planning, this work on planning was also talking a lot about parking. I know there was a committee, I think, that was formed with the last meeting that I think I'm on for talking about things we want out of a parking study. And I'm wondering what we didn't have a meeting of that, right? Like there was.
We haven't been able to make specific progress on that yet. That's a plan for this next period to get done. Okay. And so I'm wondering because you were mentioning that you actually introduced this talking about the STEP grant, which I wasn't expecting quite as much. And so I'm curious, like, are you anticipating a lot of what we're going to be focusing on with this planning work that we're talking about today will be intersecting the parking work we were talking about before and we will talk about again? Or are you looking more for the feedback that is outside the scope of the parking planning? Oh yeah, I think I was saying that the STEP grant helped in coming up with how to set it up as like existing conditions, needs assessment. That's what for this. I said it's good that we're doing all these. They're similar, they're related topics, but this is not directly tied to the STEP grant. But we will make sure that we're not over surveying people, and that we're synergizing these efforts, especially as we're like collecting information. It's a lot of the same kind of work from collecting data and talking to the public, getting feedback.
Okay, the one thing I will say, I guess, is I continue to be somewhat concerned that we will end up spending quite a bit of money looking into planning processes that I feel that it should be on the county. I mean, even when you're constructing an area planning commission, I think the idea is that the area planning commission is reacting to things that the county planning department is doing. So I'm a little concerned that we end up spending lots of money towards this, but it is the case that the county has not succeeded a lot of things they've done before. So I still appreciate the thought processes behind this, and I certainly am excited about the idea of figuring out how to get to an area planning commission. I would love to see as part of this, and it was mentioning legal analysis, but I think there's also I don't know if this makes any sense within the scope of what we're talking about today, though, is like there needs to be some political analysis in some sense to be done to try to figure out who needs to do what and why they would do it to get us to the point of the area planning commission. Because I remember that was the power that was almost stripped from us at the LAFCO level when we were going through the final approval of the district. So yeah. Very excited though when we get to talk about the parking committee meetings. I'll certainly have lots of stuff I want to talk about there, but may as well not do it here then. So.
Got it. Thank you for that, Director Freeman. I'll just also add, because I also, I think, have similar feelings about uncertainty about what the future of the Area Planning Commission power is. But I also want to point out that within this, a report could also explore other ways for the district to play a role in the planning process outside of that still furthers what our goals are. And I think that by taking a leadership role to produce this work product, we will better position ourselves in order to be on the long-range planning calendar that the county has in order to do their updates to the actual zoning and planning in Isla Vista. Any other thoughts or feedback from directors? I see a hand from Director Deschler. Go ahead.
Hi there. So I wanted to, I'm a little, I can't see the screen very well because it's super duper tiny, but I'm going to really try. So, okay.
Zoom in. Let me zoom in. One second.
Okay.
Zoom in. Let me zoom in some more. Here we go. Is this better?
Oh, yes. Thank you. I think that I remember discussing this at our board retreat. And in my mind, the reason for kind of embarking on this, the way that you've set it up, is that some jurisdictions have a planning director, and that planning director is an expert in planning and can give guidance to the board on different scenarios, different options on planning and zoning and all that it entails. And it just seemed like when we were meeting that there were a lot of confusion about the IV master plan, about what the county is doing, about the area planning commission and how those all work together. And so in my mind, that the reason that we were going down this road is to bring on board someone who could serve as someone to give us advice and information so we could make better decisions moving forward. That was my idea. I think that if we're going to add something into this statement of work on gathering data, I think this might need to be expanded a little bit. Definitely, I don't know if that's enough funding for that, but that would be the only thing I think if we're going to add another component on data for IV. We'll have to do this a little bit differently, but that was my idea, is that we just need to have an entity that can provide us with good advice and expertise in the realm of planning.
Thank you for that, Director Deschler. Director Topliff.
I'm just wondering, do we know what the county's intent is? Or are we on some kind of calendar to be looked at or updated? It seems like we're way out of date. So are we due to come up for review, or what's going on?
Do you want to go, Spencer? I can.
Sure. Yeah. Well, we got an update from Director Plowman in January about the Isla Vista Master Plan, which they had worked on over the course of the period from about 2002 through 2008. And then when it was not approved at the Coastal Commission, it was brought back to the Board of Supervisors from a period of about 2015 to 2016. But at that time, the Board of Supervisors decided not to move forward with it. And so I think what we had talked about in January was, or what Lisa Plowman had talked about in January, was doing a focused update of the plan and then potentially bringing it back to the Board of Supervisors for adoption. And in order to do that, we do need to have that be on their long-term planning work calendar, because they set the calendars pretty far in advance. Does that kind of answer the question?
It does. So if it was the Coastal Commission that turned it down last time, why aren't they part of the equation now, and it's the Board of Supervisors who would approve it?
So my understanding from the information we received from the planning department was that the Coastal Commission's concerns were surrounding beach access parking, and that the updated plan that the Board of Supervisors tabled and decided not to adopt did have a parking program that was built into it that would have alleviated the Coastal Commission's concerns. However, of course, that was not adopted. And so that's where the parking element that Director Friedman was mentioning comes in, as we start to talk about parking and the scope of work that we are going to be considering soon for a parking study.
Thank you.
I see another hand from Director Freeman.
I guess something that I think would be maybe useful to clarify is that there are kind of two separate issues that are being looked at here. One is the construction of an area planning commission and the ability for Isla Vista to kind of get a voice in the planning process. And that's something that would be unilaterally the decision of the county to have it. And that's something that the Coastal Commission steps in on. And then there's the Isla Vista master plan and the actual adoption of a plan by ostensibly the county, potentially with the Isla Vista Community Service District's approval through the use of an area planning commission. And that is something that the Coastal Commission can and has in the past stepped in on. The Coastal Commission has the jurisdiction over everything that is within, I think, the 2 miles of the coast. And they not only have the ability to react to appeals from the public of planning decisions to them, but they have the ability to proactively notice and appeal to themselves things that they consider to be problematic with respect to coastal access. And then something I would like to add is that the most recent version of the master plan, which had the additions on the modifications to the parking program that looked like they might get through the Coastal Commission process, part of what that was, in some sense, and this is something that, I mean, this is more me speaking, my opinion is looking at how the process kind of unfolded, was a modification to the master plan to try to minimize the idea that there was a parking issue in Isla Vista, which is part of then what led to such a massive backlash by a lot of people in the Isla Vista community. It's the idea that the new master plan essentially said, well, there really isn't a parking problem in Isla Vista. You know how we know? Because we did this study, and this study says that there isn't a parking problem in Isla Vista. And people were like, no, there really is a parking problem. There is a parking problem. But I kind of think that that was the county's gambit to get this to actually happen, is to try to first show that there really isn't the kind of parking, maybe a specific kind of parking problem or a parking problem in general. Maybe it was even just a game, but in order to allow it to get to coastal commission. So I'm actually not certain where we're currently at with the idea that, like, the community seemed very against the idea of accepting the conclusion that the new master plan came to. Whereas the conclusion that the new master plan came to, I think, was what allowed it to look like it would get through coastal commission, not some modification to the mechanism in some sense. So I think we're in a really perilous position, I think, with respect to, or really, we have a really narrow tightrope to walk with respect to how to construct both a parking program and a parking narrative that is something that everyone is willing to get on board with, whether they are people who want to get more cars in the area because they fit more cars in the area, with the concern that might lead to people bringing more cars to the area, versus the people who want to minimize the number of cars in the area and thereby are trying to figure out ways of limiting parking in the area. The people who are trying to figure out ways of removing cars from the streets by limiting who can park, versus the people who consider it to be incredibly important that everyone has the right to park. And figuring out how to actually make all these people happy is something that we've tried apparently many times. I've seen, I've got lots of presentations and old documents, some of which I've gotten to Spencer, some of which I haven't yet. And I've got piles of it to, more I should really hand it to Jonathan. But the from the previous efforts, but I think that's something that we've got a lot of work ahead of us, I think. So.
I think that's a good synopsis of a complex issue. We definitely do have lots ahead of us on the parking front. But are there any discussions specifically maybe for the project deliverables regarding this scope of work? I see a hand from Director Topliff.
I think the deliverables look good. I'm just wondering, have you researched, are there firms that would do this kind of work for us?
Yeah, we did some research on some firms. So we have a list who we could send to. And, so we had the idea of firms. We also had the idea of individuals, like, very talented individuals in planning who might want to do it. So, and we have the places where we can look. So we would be posting it. And we have, within our network, I think, individuals who could be reached out to hopefully apply. But so individuals or firms, I guess we're not going to be stuck on either one. And so that's kind of where we're going.
Well, and I'd be happy to volunteer to get involved with this and do what I can to move it ahead.
Thank you. We do need an ad hoc committee of up to three, so to help with this one.
So with that said, I think the amendment that I would propose to the deliverables, I'm going to make it as simple as possible. For the first two bullet points that are existing conditions report and needs assessment report, I would add the word housing.
Sounds good.
Is that germane with everybody? I know sometimes we can try and wordsmith things, but I figure let's keep it simple as we can. Okay, seeing no other discussion, I'll open up public comment. Is there any public comment regarding this item? I see a hand from Mark. Go ahead, Mark.
Hi, everyone. I'll openly acknowledge that this comment is a little bit directed at the previous discussion item and this one at the same time. I wasn't able to comment at the previous one, but they definitely go hand in hand. I just wanted to kind of make a case for doing what we can to remove the what I would call arbitrary and onerous minimum parking requirements that are set for a place like Isla Vista. Like right now, if, even if the governor did sign SB 9 and SB 10 and we wanted to build more housing on existing lots, there would be parking requirements associated with that existing housing. If we want to address this housing issue, I see it as directly relating as a parking issue. I see them going hand in hand, especially with ADUs, which could take the place or could be built in parking lots at the moment. And so that goes hand in hand into what I see with like the studies. And I really think we need to be looking at like the root causes of why people are bringing cars into Isla Vista. And because I want to recognize that some people really need cars in Isla Vista. As much as I hate cars, like I want to recognize that some people really need them in Isla Vista. But I also want to recognize that like I can at least think of like 3 different friends in Isla Vista who use their cars like maybe once a week. And it's because they really wanted to go to Trader Joe's. Like that's why they brought their car into Isla Vista. And so we talked about this, I think, at the last time we had this discussion item about not only looking at the quantifiables, but the not quantifiable data. I forgot what the word is here, but yeah, understanding kind of the human experience of it. But if there's a ton of people who say, oh, wow, I just want to be going like hiking once a week, maybe we need to start having a shuttle service to the tunnel trail, and if that really removes like enough cars in Isla Vista, or if enough people want to be shopping at Target and Trader Joe's and Albertsons and places that are not, yes, I could definitely bike to those places, but it's not super easy when I have a ton of groceries. Like maybe the Isla Vista Community Service District needs to start paying all of the delivery fees for Instacart for the area, so that students can just deliver their groceries and not have to pay the delivery fee. Because a friend of mine who loves shopping in the co-op realized that it's still cheaper for them to get an Uber like twice a month than it is for them to shop at the co-op if they can shop at a cheaper place. And that's not a commentary on the co-op. I love the co-op, but it's just like that's the math that they did. I think we need to like really understand why people are bringing cars into Isla Vista, because I think so much of it is unnecessary. And I think from there that will like inform policy and inform judgment, and hopefully like let there be more housing in Isla Vista and let there be like less conflict over parking. The reason it's so fraught is because everyone feels like there's a stake in it. And I would love that to be diffused in the future. I mean, the last thing I'll say is like I'm working with an organization in my hometown to like put little QR code door hangers on every single door that show all of the bike parking in the area in the entire city. And I think if people saw where all the bike parking was in Goleta, maybe they would choose to bike to Goleta rather than take a car to Goleta. It's giving people options. It's expanding people's horizons. And I know this is like a little bit extraneous from the specific individual point we're talking about, but I hope that like these thoughts can kind of inform discussion and inform thoughts about how we approach this. And lastly, like I know that this is very fraught, but I hope the ultimate decisions we make about this lean towards the future and lean towards climate change and lean towards urbanism as beautiful, wonderful ideas, not leaning towards the 20th century. So thank you for letting me speak. I appreciate it.
Thank you for your comments, Mark. Thoughtful as always. I see a hand from Sue. Go ahead, Sue.
Hi, I can't really speak very intelligently about this discussion that we just had because the internet connection went off several times. So I heard maybe a third of it. But I just, those of you who know me know that this is a subject that's really close to my heart and has been since like the 1980s. So right now, I think I just want to serve as a reminder that as much as, as important as the UCSB students are, there are other members of the community who we should not lose sight of in all of this process. There's still some of us here who are not students. Quite a few, I think, but that's what we need the data for, isn't it? But I just want to remind everybody that the CSD is here to serve the whole community and not to solve the university's short-sightedness with their problems. And I'm sorry, Director Deschler, but my frustration with the university has been really for decades now, because, you know, I have fought various versions of the long range development plan. And yes, maybe we are following it by the rules technically, but the problem is they keep expanding it, and the area itself is not getting any bigger. So it requires a lot of really good planning to try to solve problems that have been building up here for decades. So I just want to remind everybody of that. And if there's anything I can do as this proceeds, I will be happy to be involved. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Sue. Much appreciated. Any other requests to speak from members of the public? All right, seeing none, I will close the public comment period and bring it back to our board for any final discussion or motion. Not seeing any final discussion. Does anyone have a motion they'd like to make? Or maybe any other discussion?
I think this just goes to the murkiness of this issue that we're struggling to come up with the motion. It's a difficult issue.
Would part of the motion be to select members to work on an ad hoc committee, and then also provide direction as listed in the report? I'm trying to think of the best way to.
Yes, I think the place to start would definitely be the staff recommendation, numbers 1 and 2, as you mentioned, Director Flaherty.
Should we first talk about if there's interest by board members for an ad hoc committee, and then in the same motion include who wants to be appointed to that committee?
That's a great idea. Is anyone interested in serving on the ad hoc committee? I see a hand from Director Topliff. I will also share that I'm very interested. I see a hand from Director Freeman.
Excellent.
But I'm willing to put myself on the bottom of the list if there are other people, if there are 3 other people who want to do it. So.
Okay. Any other interests from board members? Okay, then if the board consents, I think we have our 3. Are there any other, or maybe Jonathan, do you want to just go over again the tweaks that we made to the scope of work or the deliverables?
Needed. Yeah, I think we added housing to the 3 points, which is education on planning, zoning, housing, land use, needs assessment on the same, and existing conditions on the same.
Got it. Any other modifications, or do we think we're good with that? Not seeing any other comments. Catherine, I think you were halfway there to a motion. Do you want to make your motion?
Yes, I'm struggling with the language for 1, but should I make 2 separate motions then? I'll first make a motion then, if this is okay, even though it's number 2, to create an ad hoc committee of board members, including Director Freeman, Director Topliff, and Director Brandt, to work with staff on the deliverables as we have discussed in this meeting, with the addition of housing. With the addition of housing?
Yes, I think that that's great, and I might just add for the purpose of preparing a request for proposals.
If I can interject, I think that can be the entire motion if you'd like, and then staff can bring back the RFP if they would like more direction at a further meeting.
Excellent. Thank you for bringing up that point. So there's a motion on the table from Director Flaherty. Is there a second? Seconded by Director Topliff. Any further board discussion?
Is this one of those cases where the people who are being assigned to this committee should not vote or not?
I don't believe that's.
I just always want to check.
There's almost never that situation.
Okay. When is that situation? I know that situation had come up.
I don't think that ever has happened, or it's like a myth that was created once. It's not
Okay.
our district even. Somewhere near.
It's only if we can fire you, Jay. If we can fire you, then you have to recuse yourself. But since we can't fire you, you don't have to recuse yourself.
Yeah, I think what it was at wherever else this was, it was that the directors were being paid to be on committees. And so it was a direct financial impact to yourself to vote to put yourself on the committee. But I don't know if we even do that, honestly.
Well, we need to update our policies, but we did pass our budget to include days of service, an additional day of service that presumably work on a committee could count on. But we're not there yet. But again, you all need to vote to implement a stipend policy, and you have. So I don't think that also applies either.
Got it. Okay. Thanks for that clarification. So I think we're all set to vote on the motion. And I see a hand from Director Bertrand.
Oh, I was going to ask council just to clarify that last point. Compensation from a public agency does not amount to a financial interest that disqualifies one from voting. Is that correct?
If you're speaking generally about the fact that all of the directors do receive compensation for serving on the board, then yes, that would be correct. Otherwise, there would be an impossibility essentially, and the directors would have no way of voting on any item. Conflicts of interest, usually in the financial interest context, happen when a director is directly financially interested in a contract with a third party, has property close to, a development project, which could increase or decrease their property values, things along that line, which would have like a more direct financial interest.
Thanks for the clarification.
Of course.
Thank you for that. So there's a motion on the table. It's been made by Flaherty, seconded by Topliff. And if there's no other board discussion, I think we'll bring it to a roll call vote.
Director Brandt?
Yes.
Flaherty? Bertrand?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Freeman?
Yes.
Deschler?
Yes.
Topliff?
Yes.
All right. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone, for the discussion on both of these items. They're obviously very timely and important. So we appreciate everyone's patience and attention. Next, we're going to go to item 4.3, which is the Assistant General Manager Consultation Services proposal.
Great, thank you. I'm getting it pulled up. There we go. Still waiting for it to load. Try to give it only one thing at a time. Okay, great. There it is. Can you all see that? Let me zoom in a bit once it gives me an option to zoom in. All right, I'll just get started and we'll get to this attachment in a second. So this is being brought to you. I've been emailing the board about our situation, and I can't get into personal issues in the public meeting, but we've had one of our employees, Deborah, has not been at work actively since June 1st and has been using sick and vacation time. And we are now at a point where we have some high needs of service of functions and work that need to be done. And there was a high need in August, and some of those needs, we actually updated them, and this is the one that has some taken out and some need to be put in. And I'll go over what those are, but we have needs as a district of what needs to get done, and limited staff time, and limited staff time that has this ability, working on these specific issues. We have staff time working on lots of other things, but not for this. So I'm bringing this forward. It's not an easy thing to bring forward, to propose to do something like this, because we'd like to manage our operations for the most part with our employees and our staff that we've hired. But in this case, we're not able to right now, and for this short period of 3 months, the fall. And so that's why I'm bringing this forward. It's a cost of up to $35,000. I don't anticipate using all of that, but it is 20 hours a week of work from the consultant, and their hourly rate, which, sorry, I thought it was right there. It's right here, which is $130 an hour, much higher than what our hourly rates are if you take our salaries and divide them up and get some, try to get a number. So that is part of why it's expensive, but it is, that is pretty, if someone was doing an assistant general manager job at other government agencies that were bigger than us, this is probably what the range would be. And that's why consultants would set their prices this way. So this is a reputable firm. They were recommended to us. The person who's being recommended to work with us is a local to the Central Coast. She lives in Oxnard, and she has worked in the assistant city manager role in the city of Santa Paula before, until becoming a management consultant. So we do have, we are in good hands. It is a trusted person locally, who's worked locally, and they have some people who can support her as well. And so, yeah, I know there might be other questions that might be about, how this relates to the, personnel matter. But again, I can't get into more details than I've already gotten into. But I'm happy to answer, personal questions privately. So yeah, but I can answer questions about this plan and some of the work we want to get done with it. And actually, let me give you some of the updated items. Yes, I'm so sorry. The computer situation is almost resolved. The technology, the computers we purchased are on their way.
So to verify, we should be seeing, or that we're currently seeing a black screen from you based on that comment you just made.
Oh, okay. Yes, I was switching to something. I'm just gonna stop that. Some of the additional things that they would be helping with is just managing this all of these RFPs we've got going on, just making sure that's all in line and we're doing it. I'm adding in better record management of our HR files, which have grown in the last 3 or 4 months significantly. Administering our Family and Medical Leave Act and state disability leave programs, and helping me come up with an employee evaluation policy. Those are a couple of new things I want to add, and assisting with the audit, which is about to start. And I realized, like, wow, I've got to prepare a lot of information for the audit, and usually it's in the summer with Bob's help, but we're not in that situation anymore, and it's in a more busy time. So we do have a lot going on, and that this would be, really necessary. I think the number one point I'd say that this is going to get done is they're going to implement our 457B retirement plan for our employees that we've promised, and that is not in place. So I think that's, the chief thing to get done first, that I'm going to work with Julie on, is getting that to a recommendation for you at the October 12th meeting, if we can go that fast. So that would be project number one, get our retirement plan going, and we'll move forward from there. I'd like to take some questions. Let me stop the screen share.
Excellent. Thank you for that overview. Are there any questions for Jonathan? Director Topliff.
Well, I'd just like to comment that I think the rate is very reasonable. So especially because you're not giving them benefits, it really does pencil out to be not a bad rate at all. So I think that that's great. I'm also happy to hear that she's from the Central Coast, and apparently you've had some amount of interaction with her so that you feel like it's a good cultural fit. And I think the work that you've laid out for her to do makes very good sense.
Thank you.
Thank you. Director Deschler.
I will just echo Carrie's comments. I thought the rate seems great, and I just really applaud you, Jonathan, for thinking creatively of how to solve a really difficult situation. And I have worked with management partners before, and it's been a very positive experience. They bring together a collective of experts in local government, and then they become consultants on a short-term basis. And so the fact that you have such a good fit, it seems, is great. And the things I know you were concerned about cost, but when I look at the list of items, not to have those items in place is a cost. And it's a cost to the way that the board does business, the district does business. So I think it's outstanding. It looks really good. I think it's going to be so helpful for you to have an expert in-house. And probably you will find that this person will advise you on issues that you didn't even know you wanted to know about. And I think that's kind of the value of bringing someone in who has a high level of local government experience. I was just going to add to that list if this person could help you get a credit card.
Oh yes, it is on the list.
Okay,
actually,
good.
I just forgot to mention, their job is also going to be calling the credit card company, seeing what's going on.
Okay, fabulous.
Figuring
Good.
it out. Yes, it is on the list. My bad.
Thank you for that comment, Director Deschler. I too agree with the previous comments about the cost associated with this. I'd also point out that while it's not a great situation to be in, with our employee going on FMLA, that's not a cost, that there's a cost savings there to the district in terms of staff salaries. So I'm not worried about being able to afford it at all. I think this is crucial for us moving forward on these important items. So I'm supportive of the proposal. Director Bertrand.
Thank you. I definitely agree. We're a small shop, but a mighty shop. And just looking at the description is a good reminder of how much each of our staff members do. And it's impressive. And I know that our assistant general manager has done a wonderful job and really carried a heavy load. And during their time of absence, the work needs to continue. And I think this is a good plan for making sure that happens. So I'm definitely supportive.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions from the board? Seeing none, I'll open up public comment. Are there any public comments on this item? I see a hand from Mark. Go ahead, Mark.
Hi. Yeah, I have really no doubt in Jonathan and the decision to do this and the board, I guess. I guess my question, just kind of as a taxpayer question, is from what I remember, and I'm willing to be corrected, that we have a job opening position for an additional assistant city manager or assistant general manager. That alone could be a wrong assumption. And I'm wondering, has it been considered that just, in speeding up the hiring process for that person could supplement the role of the current staff member that's on leave? There might be a lot of wrong assumptions there, but I just wanted to ask the question to have it known for the public record.
Yeah, thank you. They have a similar title, but they are totally different jobs. One job is all about community events and programs and things like that, and another job is more about operations. So different skill sets. Whoever we hire would not have the skills to do this job.
Got it. Thanks, Jonathan.
Thank you for the question, Mark. Are there any other comments from members of the public? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board, and I think we're ready for a motion. Director Topliff.
I'll make a motion to authorize the general manager to enter into a contract with management partners in a not to exceed amount of $35,000 in accordance with the proposal that they submitted to us.
Motion has been made. Is there a second?
I will second.
We're going to let
Chris.
our Director Deschler have that one. Made by Topliff, seconded by Deschler. There's no other comments. I think we'll go to a roll call vote.
Just getting the last word of the motion. Okay. Just to read it back to you, I got motion to authorize the general manager to enter into a contract with management partners not to exceed $35,000 and in line with the proposal submitted. Great. And so Director Brent?
Yes.
Director Flaherty?
Yes.
Dr. Bertrand?
Yes.
Dr. Aguilar?
Yes.
Director Freeman?
Yes.
Dr. Deschler?
Yes.
Director Topliff?
All right, motion passes. Great. We're going to move to the next item, which is the expanded property condition report for 970 and 976 Embarcadero Del Mar.
And Mr. Brandt, if I may, I'm going to recuse myself from items 4.5 and 5.1, both related to 970 and 976 Embarcadero Del Mar, due to my employment at the County of Santa Barbara. So I'll be in the waiting room. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Bertrand. All right, Jonathan, would you like to introduce this item?
Yes, okay, he's in the waiting room now. Yes, let me get this set up. And we actually just got an email from them at 4 p.m. So I'll update the board on that last email. It's just clarification on some questions I had received from board members about this, but I'll get to that just in 1 second. So as some of you may know, but just to fill in our newer board members, last year we did a report,
And excuse me, Jonathan.
Yes.
I am also a Santa Barbara County employee. Should I be recusing myself?
I can't advise you on that.
I will say, Director Topliff, although I know it is different that you are an employee, well, I won't try to give advice on that, but I'll just say our previous representative did not recuse themselves from these items.
Okay, but he was a retiree, which I am, but I also work for the county in human resources about 4 hours a week.
Council, do you have advice? Our other board member is direct staff for a county supervisor, so it's a different kind of role.
And it is an elected position as opposed to being appointed by the county to represent the county.
Yes.
I can't advise Director Topliff only because I am not entirely sure how these properties interact specifically with your employment. However, I can give a recommendation that if you feel that there might be any potential possibility of a conflict, that out of an abundance of caution, you could recuse yourself.
I don't feel like that's necessary given my current role with the county and my relationship to this situation. So I'm going to stay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for helping clarify that.
So, yes, so as I was saying, we had a year ago in May of 2020, we had commissioned a report as a CSD in our considerations of a lease with the county for the 970, 976 properties. It was a simple report. It was visual only. It was just a walkthrough on a Saturday afternoon, but it gave us a lot of necessary information as a district as we consider the state of our community assets. And as our discussions with the county continue in our negotiations, and we'll be discussing in our closed session, it just becomes more obvious that we want to have a fuller scope and understanding of the state of the buildings. Now that we know a base level of where the buildings are at, And that now we know that it's so important based on what we know to know more, that there's a lot we don't know, and that there's a lot we'd like to figure out based on, assumptions or ongoing issues like the HVAC issue. How do we solve that? So we went and got a request from the same company that did our report previously to put together a proposal. And we wanted to get, we could get a board action today, or we can get board input on like different scope of work and bring back other, other pricing or different pricing for these different things. But what we're thinking of is, one is an equity level generalist property condition assessment report. And here's a description of it. This is similar to what we did before, but let me explain. Let me read we got a new snippet of information on how this is different than what we did before. So the other one was a debt level, and this is an equity level. Debt would be the type of report that's provided to a lender. It doesn't list out all the bells and whistles that you would want or need to look at when looking at a property. A lender doesn't need to know all that. Generalist PCA / equity PCA are the same thing. So the equity level is looking at different things, is looking at things from a different perspective, I guess, is what they're saying. So that's the first part. That's the base report. We're adding on now we're adding on an HVAC evaluation. That's so important because the HVAC is what caused the mold, which is what caused the shutdown of the community room for 6 months in 2019 to 2020. We're going to look at the plumbing and how water and sewer runs. And, like I mentioned a couple months ago, we had a gas leak at the property. And so that's also important. We're going to look at electrical, the insides of the buildings, fire and suppression. Again, another important issue with how small and narrow those hallways are. And then we're going to get a very deep accessibility report. We asked for the deepest analysis that they have on accessibility in ADA. There are other options on here, and we can look at them. They didn't gravitate to us necessarily yet, but they might in the future. They might based on what someone brings up. For example, the roofing. The county did just replace the roof at 970. We could do a study to see how that is, or not. Or we could leave it as is. But we know that these kind of reports, each scope of work is going to run us in the 3,000 to 5,000 up to 7,000 range to add scope. So the box one right here is a $5,300 report. And then these four taken together come out to the $5,300. And then the accessibility, interior and exterior, are pretty significant themselves. And it's a total of $21,000 to do this report. And then again, so this is, again, still mainly looking at the internals. It's not looking at, these are others. Like what improvements can we make and plans for improvements. This is not what we're considering right now. We're looking at getting more assessment of the state of the buildings so that we can know and we can effectively advocate for, and we can make plans for how we improve them and how we utilize them and how they should be. Like, are they safe to utilize? Are they safe with provisions, or do we need to do X before they're safe to utilize? So it's going to give us a lot of information, and it's going to give us information about the long-term costs of the buildings, the internals, what kinds of costs are those going to be bringing us based on their status and efficiencies. So. And one last thing is we don't have a specific budget line item for something like this right now. So it would be something we use we take out of our undesignated reserves as an investment in our goals. But it's not something we budgeted for, but it is a bigger expense that we might not foresee a budget item like this, and we might not need to use our funds that are maybe targeted for these kinds of expenses. So that's it. If anyone has any questions, and again, it would be good to have action today, but if we're not ready, we can look at different scope and bring back something if we want to add or if we want to get clarification.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Jonathan. Are there any questions for Jonathan about this report? Director Deschler.
I just wanted to ask a question about looking at the seismic aspect of the building. And I noticed that you didn't check that, and I just wanted to understand kind of your thinking about that.
Yeah, I'll say that it just wasn't an idea that we had. And we didn't know. And then we got this recently and it's on the list. So it didn't come to mind, but it's now that it's on there, we see it. So if it is something we want to do, we can ask about adding it, but we didn't think of that when we were thinking of the issues, when we had sent them a request to send us a proposal.
Any other questions for Jonathan? Not seeing any other questions. I'll just add something, which is when I first saw this, one of the thoughts that came to my mind was under the capital improvement planning, the energy efficiency and green certification. Not that we would really go for any certifications, but really to try and identify ways that there can be improvements made to conserve energy in the buildings. One of the reasons we know that the HVAC system caused all the mold is that the HVAC system is constantly running due to the construction of the building and the way that it is obtaining so much light. And that also increases the amount of, utility costs that we pay, HVAC being one of the highest, consumptors of energy. But I also hear what you're saying, Jonathan, about how that's stepping into specific capital improvement planning. And I think the scope that we have here, where we're just trying to evaluate the building for accessibility and the existing condition rather than starting to talk about additional improvements, does make a lot of sense. And I really view this as crucial for the community and us having a really good understanding of the conditions of the building done by a third-party independent observer, so that we can have good data to be able to figure out a way to enter into an agreement that meets the needs of the community. Any other comments or questions from board members? Not seeing any, I'll open up public comment. Is there any public comment on this item? All right, I'm seeing none. So I'll bring it back to our board. Any other discussion, or are we ready for a motion? I think the motion would be something to the effect of directing staff to contract with management partners to fulfill the scope of work that's outlined in the letter that they've sent us. Director Topliff?
I'll make the motion to authorize staff to enter into the agreement with Partner Engineering and Science, Inc. to do an assessment of the properties at 976 and 970 Embarcadero Del Mar.
All right, made by Topliff. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Flaherty. Any other discussion for the board? All right, let's go to a roll call vote.
Okay, sorry, just getting the last word here. Director Brent?
Yes.
Director Flaherty?
Yes.
Director Bertrand? Oh, recused. Director Aguilar?
Yes.
Director Freeman?
Yes.
And Director Deschler?
Yes.
Director Topliff?
Yes.
All right, motion passes 6-0.
Let me text Director Bertrand to get him back.
Sounds good. Once Director Bertrand has rejoined us, we'll move to the next item.
He is not in the waiting group, so he's just got to join the Zoom again.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, the next item, there he is. The next item is his updates. We do need him.
Yes. I was going to say control to the next item. All right. Now we're going to move to 4.6, the Nightlife Arts and Culture Ad Hoc Committee update. And I'll hand it over to Jonathan and the Nightlife Arts and Culture Ad Hoc Committee for this update.
Great, thank you. I personally don't have a lot to add at the beginning. I want to turn it over to our committee to introduce their update, and then I can talk more about how we might be able to do some of this, but I want to let them go first. You want me to share the screen?
Oh, that would be great, Jonathan, if you could share the screen, and I'll kick it off. Myself, Marcos, and Catherine met about 2 weeks ago to plan for what this effort looks like in the fall, but just a reminder of where we've been. So last spring, we created this idea of planning for the future of nightlife in Isla Vista, doing it in a collaborative way. We went ahead and had our first community town hall in May. As you may have seen in the staff report, there's a link to some notes from that first meeting where we heard a lot of different ideas about how we can improve the nighttime experience in Isla Vista. Some of it's related to programming, some of it's related to just the general nighttime environment, as well as other areas. And since then, we've, as a district, have worked on passing our budget for this year, which includes funding for important positions related to this, including the Assistant General Manager of Community Programs, the Director of Community Engagement, as well as funding for programs such as those that take place at night and those that involve arts and culture. There's a couple things that have come up that are a little bit different since when we started this. The Delta variant is real, and that's not something that we saw when we started this process. I'm hoping that there could be a lot more in-person events at this time. But nonetheless, that gives us an opportunity to continue to work on some other things and get ready for the time when it is safe for folks to really gather together again. And with that being said, another thing that is an exciting opportunity is when we launched this, it was right at the end of the school year, but now being the fall, folks are coming back and we can really carry out a comprehensive and engaging planning process. So what we have tonight is just coming back to the board for an update and asking for direction to work with staff to actually carry out some more engagement this fall. Particularly what we would like to do is to have some pop-up outreach events, such as at night, tabling, or going to different events or spaces where there are folks who would be interested in this topic. And up to this point, it's been our ad hoc committee working on this, but by getting some staff support and working with our talented team, especially our new Director of Community Engagement, we feel that we can really reach more people and continue to move the ball forward with planning for just an awesome time at night. So I'll go ahead and pass it over to Catherine next.
Yes, thank you, Ethan, for the introduction. I think you covered a lot of really important information. Something that we spoke about at our meeting as a committee, but we've also discussed as a board briefly, is the idea of a community calendar, which is something that we're really excited about and we're hoping that we can work with staff with. I spoke really briefly with Sydney over email when I was turning in my bio and photo, and she expressed interest in updating the website, which made me personally really excited. So that's something that I would love to continue. I know that that will be really important, especially as we move forward with an in-person school year. There are a lot of students, there are a lot of new freshmen who are coming, but also second years, a lot of whom have never even been in Isla Vista, never stepped foot on campus. And so having a space where things can be consolidated. And there's a diverse range of events too is really important to me as well. Making sure that's as accessible as it could possibly be, and making sure that we can all celebrate together and share art and music and culture. And so that's something that I'm personally really excited about, and I hope that we can work with staff on. I don't know if Marcos, you have anything to add, or Spencer, or Ethan, sorry.
Well, yeah, I wanted to add part of our discussion from a couple weeks ago also revolved around some of the non-programming needs for nightlife here in Isla Vista. So one of the things that came up was safe transportation, and that's kind of a twofold issue of getting people back into IV if they leave to go to some kind of activity downtown, if they go bar hopping, if they go to a concert. And I know that traditionally a lot of Isla Vistans rely on Bill's bus, and we don't know if that's constantly running or not. It seems that it's not running in its regular schedule because of COVID. It's not totally safe to have that many people on a bus. But we do have this concern with people who need to get a way back to Isla Vista safely after 10 p.m., after the MTD shuts down. We don't want our residents drinking and driving. So that's one issue that still brings into nightlife and the culture of Isla Vista is just general transportation. Another issue that came up was just for years and years and years, Isla Vista has had this whole issue of where to go to the restroom, where to go to the bathroom in Isla Vista, and how do we make that less of a scary moment and less of a dangerous moment for our environment, less of a dangerous moment for our citizens, and we don't have to rely on police officers enforcing different code. And if we could give our residents an option, that would help decrease this kind of disagreement with law enforcement. Those are some of the less exciting ideas that we talked about, but are still very important to creating a holistic and healthy nightlife here in Isla Vista. And those are things that I think that we can give attention to, since we can't necessarily start programming with Delta variant going on.
Yeah, I think those are great points that both you, Marcos, and Catherine brought up. And one thing I realized is when I jumped into the intro on this, I kind of got just right into the weeds of our latest discussions. But again, just to bring it back to big picture, we really want to have an actionable plan for how we improve nightlife, not just for us, but for our other stakeholders, so that at the end of this, folks can take the lead on different action items to really implement change. And this should be reflective of the desires of the community for what the experience is at night. So that's why the community engagement piece is really important. One of our partners in this has been the Isla Vista Recreation and Park District. We co-hosted the town hall with them, really appreciated working with them on that. I think one thing that's important as we go forward is that our respective districts, as well as other entities that we're involved with, that we all really take ownership of our portion. And with our district, we have expertise in a number of areas. Parks District has expertise in a number of areas. And I think that as we work to complement each other's efforts, that's our strongest position, where we know what each other are doing, and that we stick to our areas of service. And outside of the programming area, which we are really excited to work on in this coming year, we've also done a lot on the public safety side at night, and that's an important part of this. And there's other things that we'll be working on this year as well that are all related to the nighttime experience. So in summary, for tonight, there's a recommended motion at the top, which is just to direct members of the ad hoc committee and staff to plan for and execute pop-up outreach events for this fall, and work with stakeholders to schedule additional community meetings to solicit feedback.
I'd also like to add on as well. I know I spoke from my perspective as a student in referencing the first, second, possibly transfers that are coming, but our goal with this is to be inclusive to all residents. So I hope that I apologize if that came off differently. This is not just catering towards students, this is catering to our entire community. And I would just really like to emphasize that.
Excellent. Thank you to the committee for that update and sharing of all the good work. Are there any questions from directors to the committee or to staff? Not seeing any questions. I will just say I am very excited to attend one of these pop-up events when they happen. I think that it's a really excellent strategy for gathering the feedback that we need to gather. We make very little use of surveys and polling and things like that when we do some of our outreach, but having that human outreach, I think, is going to just be really good at coming up with something that's really representative of the community. So I'll be looking forward to that. Thank you all for your work on this. Okay, I'll ask if there's any public comment on this item. Please hit the raise hand button or put something in the chat. All right, seeing none, bring it back to the board. And I see a hand from Director Freeman.
Yes, verify that I'm, okay, good. Actually, there was somebody, just got a visit from the local sheriff, just making certain everything was okay, not because I'm sitting in the car, but because of the process of bringing things in and out of the thing I was at. So, where was I? So today was the recreation committee meeting from the Elvis Recreation and Parks District, which has Mia and Julia on it. And one thing that came up during that meeting, which I did not grab all the context for, was that they were, since the town hall, there was like some question came up about coordination with the IVCSD, and Mia had asked, "As we heard from the IVCSD on something?" And the answer was no. And so I'm just kind of making certain that whatever communication channel is in place with IVRPD is strong, because I think that they really should be leading the charge on recreation in the area. If it is, then there might just be maybe some little bit of poking needs to be done with them to make certain that they know that it's strong. So,
Director Friedman, if I can answer, I heard that comment and I did check my email, and there's nothing we haven't not replied to. We've been in touch with them on different things, but I'm not sure what it might be referring to.
Okay, great. I actually had missed the context before. I was like, I was juggling video streaming new stuff for this process today, and so I not heard the comments larger before that, but kind of joined back in the audio at that moment just in order to hear them start talking about how the IVCSD, where were they on something. So yeah.
Yeah, and Director Freeman, I think that goes to what I mentioned before, just about while this is a project that involves many different stakeholders and entities, it also has a level of us working on the things that are within our wheelhouse, and the same with them. For example, they've produced a tremendous summer concert series, and that's something all on their own. A lot of that's in line with the mission here, but that's something that they've done a great job with, all on their own. Similarly, I mentioned some of the nighttime activities on our side, especially, with what we have right now on the public safety side, and that's something that we do on our own. I think this fall we're going to have a great opportunity to come together again with the planning process. But since that meeting, a lot of what's happened have been independent activities by both of our districts.
Excellent. Any other comments or questions from board members? It wasn't mentioned verbally during public comment, but I do want to note we got a public comment in the chat from Katie Murray saying that Katie is excited to hear that bathrooms are a priority and saying thank you. So with that, then I think we're ready for a motion. Does anyone, would anyone like to make the recommended motion? Director Flaherty.
I know I'm a part of this ad hoc committee, so I was a little awkward motioning on that. But I would like to make a motion to direct members of the ad hoc committee and staff to plan for and execute pop-up outreach events for this fall and work with stakeholders to schedule additional community meetings to solicit feedback.
Motion made by Flaherty. Is there a second?
I'll second. Yep. Kirsten's second.
No, I already got a second today. You can have this one, Ethan.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, seconded by Bertrand. If there's no other comments, I think we're ready to go to a roll call vote.
Director Brandt,
Yes.
Flaherty,
Yes.
Bertrand,
Yes.
Aguilar,
Yes.
Deshler,
Yes.
Freeman,
Yes.
Topliff.
Yes.
All right, motion passes. Thank you to the committee for your work on this, and thank you to our staff who's going to be helping execute these things. Looking forward to it. So I'm going to skip closed session for the time being to go to reports first for the convenience of the public. And we're first going to go to reports from members of the board. And Jonathan, before we do that, do you think you can stop sharing your screen?
Oh yeah, sorry.
No, no worries.
I was like getting ready for the closed session.
That's why I was thinking maybe we should get you to stop.
Good call. Good call.
Okay. Any reports from members of the board? Director Bertrand and then Director Deshler.
Thanks. So actually kind of related to the last item, myself and Director Brandt went on a walk around Isla Vista, I think last weekend, late in the evening, just to get a sense for what the situation was like. And we saw a lot of people having fun, which was great. But we also saw a lot of the challenges that we need to continue to address, especially the amount of confrontations and conflict between law enforcement officers and community members who are just out having fun. That's something that we have to work on, and being out there really just re-emphasized that. And we need to work to get to a safer situation where folks are out in the community making good decisions, and also having that respect from folks who are out looking to keep them safe as well. So I'm encouraged by our continued interest in how we can figure out some alternative ways for keeping people safe at night. That's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Bertrand. Director Deshler and then Director Aguilar.
Mine isn't as much as a report as I just wanted to mention something, and I see that there isn't anyone here from Supervisor Joan Hartman's office, but I did know that this Friday there's going to be an event at the Isla Vista Community Center parking lot, and it's something that's hosted by SB CAG on electric bikes. And so they're going to have a couple representatives from local bike share companies, and people can check out the bikes. And it's, let's see, I know it's Friday. Oh, Friday at 11 a.m. So I thought I would mention that if anyone's interested.
Thank you for sharing, Director Deshler. And as someone who has ridden those bikes, I can say they're really fun. Come ride them with us.
I'll be there. I just want everyone to know I'll be there.
Sounds good. Director Aguilar, go ahead.
Just quickly, a second, I will also be there on Friday. Excited about that opportunity to help people get around. Just a quick update from the Goleta Library Advisory Commission. The grant for the Sprinter van. So our Sprinter van is purchased and it's currently being modified. And they're looking to operate this van 30 hours a week. So that'll be going to a couple of different locations in the small Isla Vista area, large Isla Vista area. And I think they're aiming at an early October ribbon cutting ceremony. But so far those plans kind of change here or there, but that's the last time that we spoke on August 25th.
Excellent. Thank you for that update, Director Aguilar. I'll give a quick report. very much in the vein of Director Bertrand's report about our experience that we saw when we were out there checking out the nightlife. There was a meeting today that was convened by Supervisor Hartman's office about harm reduction in Isla Vista. And I thought it was a really good overview of some of the existing work that's being done with an eye for the future. We had participation from the Sheriff's Office, UCPD, Santa Barbara County Fire Department, UCSB Alcohol and Drug Counseling, and obviously ourselves there. And I was encouraged to see a broader group of stakeholders on the issue than maybe traditionally we have done, where it's been more focused just on service providers and law enforcement, but also having fire there as well was really good. So there was a lot of discussion about efforts to continually educate the community about medical amnesty as we come back into having a more full community that I thought were really good, and some discussions about the utilization of an ambassador type, or not ambassador, I'm sorry, of the way that the ambassadors worked in Isla Vista, and utilizing a similar approach in the future. So Jonathan is on the committee that's been formed to bring back some recommendations, and when we hear some recommendations, we'll bring back more updates on that. Any other reports from board members? All right. Moving on to reports from standing and ad hoc committees. We just got one from the Nightlife Arts and Culture Committee. Is there any other committees that have reports? I don't believe so. We'll move on to
Generally, there will be a policy committee meeting soon, but Jonathan may as well, if we're going to describe anything about it, may as well, because it's just an email I got from him. So
yeah, I could just say quickly that we do have 2 items being developed for policy committee consideration. One of them is a press relations policy, which the board did vote to develop 2 years ago, and it's finally ready to vote on. So that's one of the things. And the first policy committee meeting since COVID.
All right. Thank you for the update. Next, we'll go to report from District Council.
Thank you. Nothing to report at this time.
Excellent. Thank you for joining us, Ms. Traxler. We'll now move to report from General Manager.
Great. It's looking a little different this time because I'm looking at one screen, another one. Some of our technology has come in, so it's been like a huge change and improvement. Still waiting on the computers, but having just a bigger monitor to look at and do work, major improvement. So that's a great thing that's happened. Thank you for approving that today. Just some updates. So in the area of community engagement, Sydney has been, and our interns working with her have been, still hard at work. We're producing an IVCSD brochure, which is almost done to release, that will deliver to every household. And we're going to include in that a slip-in about rental housing mediation and other ways to help resolve those issues, so people can have like tips and hints on hand. And we're at the same time, if you check the website, it has already changed significantly in a good way, and will continue to be updated and changed. But it's been reorganized and looks a lot cleaner in a lot of areas. And we're developing content for the website. So our interns in Sydney are working on that. Like we did an article on 5 ways to sustainably move in to Isla Vista. And so that's just a way to help create more traffic and people staying on our website and interacting with other things. So they can sign up for a compost program that's connected to that, for example. And talking on the compost collective, it's on pause this week, but we have some great accomplishments. We just built a new compost pile at St. Mike's Church. So now we have 2 there. We're making up for one that went away for the Methodist Church for this year. So we've made up for that. That issue is averted now. And we're developing a drop off and sign up system for people who already are dropping off compost, but we're trying to make them users and connect them to us and have them weigh their compost. And, we can grow our user base without having to keep collecting from every house directly. So, and there's people who like dropping off. So we're trying to make a connection to those folks now, formal connection. And Carly, our staff member, she keeps working on different ways to grow and scale the program financially, sustainably, and in a way that has more people composting in Isla Vista. So it's a lot of exciting work, but we're excited to have built this new pile. It's a small one. It's just like the one that they had at Methodist, but we had to make up for that going away very quickly. And they did turn that around. They built it, and it's good to go. I looked at it yesterday. It looks amazing. The Ivy Beautiful, the United Way did hire a new program manager, and I'm meeting with them tomorrow. And I'm still working through resolving some issues and questions in terms of funding of the old contract and new contract. Safety stations, we're needing to meet with IVRPD still to get secure partnership on the 3rd safety station location, but we hope to do that relatively soon. UCPD is on that. And the interpersonal violence investigator, I sent you all the August report, and that's a new thing. We're going to start getting the activity reports monthly instead of all at once at the end, so you can stay informed on what's going on there. Rental housing mediation, pretty busy. Got 4 requests in the last 2 days already, so things. Sayer has his hands full. We're doing his work, and we're starting to brainstorm, and we're starting to develop some ideas. We already have like a COVID-19 contract for roommates that you can take and use with your roommates without involving us. And so we're starting to come up with other things, like just a general good housemate contract to give people, and then kind of like fill in the blank, different kinds of things to help people do rental mediation, maybe on their own before they come to us, and so that they can have the tools themselves. Community center, community room, great update. I think Marcos mentioned it already. Library services are starting. October 4th is a kickoff event. And I think we had it scheduled. I think I told you all the date. It was October 4th at 1 or 2 p.m. And I'll send you, it's not confirmed yet. So once I have a confirmed invitation, we'll send it out. And we're also doing a reception for the new UCSB Black students on September 24th in partnership. So UCSB is one of our advisory board members, and they're staffing the event at the community center patio. So we've worked on both these instances with the county to coordinate use agreements between the county and the users, but we've been kind of soliciting and being the in-between. So making sure that there's still things happening. We did have a weird issue at our building though. Someone replaced one of our locks, and the county asked me what's going on with that. So I just wanted to inform you, it's another security issue that I've noticed just in this summer. So just wanted to let you all know this happened today. Step grant, it's the lock for our dumpsters. So I think it might be the business owners. It might be a total misunderstanding, but there's some issues.
Okay, I was like picturing a door lock, and I was like, that's
a door lock. No, sorry, I should have been. No, it's like a the clip lock with a key. So the next thing is Step Grant is taking on continually a lot of work, but it's good work. Sydney's working on the community engagement plan, is almost done to submit for approval. And we're mid RFP right now. We've got a lot of interest. We got a lot of questions from people. So it's just a good sign, and I'll be answering those questions, and we're excited to see who we get, but so far it's looking really good. So that's great. Other things, audit is coming soon. I think I might have mentioned that in an email, but we should be getting our audit soon. That's going to be a good amount of work in terms of like preparing for that and all that. And the other policy that I'm working on is employee evaluations, which we don't have, and we did discuss. And so we need to get that just formally in place based on some of the discussions we've had. And one last thing is we had it noted today that there's going to be, and it was asked to share that there's going to be mounted Ivy Foot Patrol unit in Isla Vista next week on Friday. They're not supposed to be for enforcement. I think I sent this to the board, but their district asked us to share that information. So it's not supposed to be for enforcement. We're not sure any more information. We just got this today, and I'll keep you updated. And if you have anything about that, you can let me know, and I'll forward it along. But we just know that there'll be mounted horse units in Isla Vista next Friday, getting training. That's my report. Sorry, didn't end it.
Thank you for that report, Jonathan. Are there any questions from directors? Director Deschler?
I wondered if you have anything to report on the assistant general manager position that perhaps maybe got filled.
No, I will. I don't have. I had a last conversation about that at 5 or 4 p.m. today. So
Okay.
but it's not a. It is a progress, but it's not an update I can share yet.
Excellent. Any other questions for Jonathan? All right, seeing none, we have concluded the reports item, and we're now going to move into closed session. This is conference with real property negotiators for the property at 970 and 976 Embarcadero Del Mar. Negotiators are Spencer Brandt, myself, Director Geis, consultant, Jonathan Abu, general manager, and district counsel. Under negotiation are price and terms of payment, and the parties are the Community Services District and the County of Santa Barbara. And then additionally, conference with real property negotiators for the compost facility at Estero Road, Cul-de-sac, Isla Vista, California. Negotiators are Jonathan Abu, general manager. Negotiating parties are the Isla Vista Community Services District and the Isla Vista Recreation and Park District under negotiation price and terms of payment. And Director Bertrand has previously announced he will be recusing himself from closed session item 5.1. We will report out in open session once the items have concluded.
Let me get the waiting room set up.
Or I'm probably going to ask you, counsel, to do the report out. All right. Are we back live?
We're ready. Yeah, YouTube is back.
Okay,
Can you give me just a second here, actually?
Thanks.
are we good?
Hold on a second. I as an extra precaution, partly because of, oh, I see what's going on. Partly because of the San Ynez Community Services meeting, I left Karen in charge of running the computer, and she managed to make a mistake on this with relation to the closed session part. I added an extra precaution, and literally just as we finally got to the point of being done with this, my computer disconnected from the internet because it was like had timed out. So okay, I'm now reconnecting into here to turn off this precaution.
No problem.
It's very amusing to
Right.
think Karen. Never mind.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, we are back on video on the screen.
Okay. We are reconvening to open session. Council, is there any reportable action?
No reportable action. A closed session was held pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.8 on two items. Item 5.1, property 970 and 976 Embarcadero, and 5.2, compost facility at Estero Road. Direction provided to staff. No reportable action taken.
All right, thank you. Our next meeting will take place on, sorry, I clicked away, on September 28th, 2021. And it will be here on Zoom. Are there any future agenda items that directors want to add at this time? All right, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
I
I
second.
will second.
Made by Dushler, seconded by Freeman. Any public comment, discussion? All those in favor, sorry, roll call.
Dr. Brandt,
Yes.
Verity,
Yes.
Aguilar,
Yes.
and Deshler,
Yes.
Yes.
Topliff.
Yes.
Go.
All right. Take care, everyone. Have a great evening.
Good night.
Right.
Too late.